Hi, Veg Heads, Veg Your Besties. Today on Veg Your Best, we're going to do something brand new for me, brand new for the podcast. We have an interview which has challenged all my walking and chewing gum skills of recording and having a conversation with somebody who I think is terrific, and that's Sid Garza Hillman. Sid Garza Hillman is a veteran podcaster, and if you've listened to this podcast, mine, Veg Your Best, you have heard me mention him more than a few times. He's the author of 3 books, including Approaching the Natural, a Health Manifesto, Raising Healthy Parents, Small Steps, Less Stress, and a Thriving Family. That's one I gave to my daughter and my son-in-law a little while back when they were expecting our grandson, who is needs healthy parents, apparently. And this new book that's come out, Sid Garza Hillman's 6 Truths. 6 Truths. Live by these truths and be happy. Don't and you won't, counsels Sid. He holds a BA in philosophy from UCLA, and we talk about philosophy. And he's a public speaker, a podcaster. What Sid Thinks is his current iteration of a podcast. He's a certified nutritionist. He's a running coach. He's the founder of smallsteppers.com. He is the Stanford Inn and Resorts Wellness Programs Director. And he's a race director of the Mendocino Coast 50K Trail Ultra Marathon. So he does a lot of things. And if you listen to What Sid Thinks podcast, you will get a sense very quickly of Sid's humor, but also his seriousness about wellness and helping people get something real out of their lives. And 6 Truths, his new book, which supposedly is still on pre-order, depending on what you read on Amazon. It's either pre-order or it's actually being shipped. So it's brand new, and you should look for it immediately. But right now, we're going to talk to him, and hopefully you'll get a good idea of why I think he's such a great voice to listen to, and now to read. Sid Garza Hillman, thank you for doing me the honor of being the first person I interview on my podcast, Veg Your Best.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you wouldn't have agreed, right?
Wow, bad move on your part. This is gonna set the trend for all the. It can only go up from here.
Well, so. All my podcasts have been just me talking. Now you have set the bar for just being you talking on a podcast.
For better or for worse, that is mostly what I do these days. Yes.
Yeah, and even on Approaching the Natural, which I listened to forever, that was almost always just you, right?
Yeah, I would scatter in interviews. Probably of the 222 episodes, I might have done, I don't even know, 20 episodes maybe, with guests. Not that much, it would usually be when it sort of hit me. And I didn't have a plan for the new show to not have guests. I just haven't. And I actually tried one time and the audio failed. So I would have guests at some point. Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Well, anyway, but thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And my listeners, the ones who listen to me all the time, have heard me reference you frequently. We have used the term MOTT, M-O-T-T, most of the time. People always resonate with that.
Yes.
So I hope that I've introduced some people to you.
Cool. Thank you.
So tell my listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, these days, and I've done some different weird things over my time here, but these days I'm a small steps coach and run an online program and a private coaching model called Small Step Intensive. I run a wellness center at the Stanford Inn and Resort in Mendocino on the Mendocino Coast. I direct an ultramarathon, and I am a father and a husband and a runner myself and musician and all sorts of cool stuff, and writer, and have a new book out, as you know. And so that's kind of what I'm doing, coaching people and teaching people, nutritionist,
Yes, that's right.
Newly breathing instructor, Oxygen Advantage breathing.
Let's
breathing
talk about that in a minute too, because that's interesting. I think
so
a lot
exciting.
of us think we're already breathing,
and we are, but not functionally. And boy, it was a really incredible program to go through and learn about that whole end of things, which I hadn't really gotten into before. So
that's
cool.
Fantastic. So as we know, I listened to you for many years before I became plant-based and then vegan. I listened to you and I was very inspired by a lot of what you do and a lot of your teaching, even though it's not always very vegan or plant-based. That's not the subject that comes up.
Right.
Usually you talk about doing things that are more natural, more healthy most of the time. Mm-hmm. And we call it Vedge Your Best because that's what we're trying to do, things the best way we can.
Cool.
And your new book with 6 Truths is a lot about how you've used your experience in all these topics and all these very widely different topics to give some advice to people about how they can enjoy their lives a bit more.
Yeah, it's a happiness manifesto. Essentially, it's about, regardless of what choice you make about food. And again, like you're right, my focus with both podcasts and my books hasn't been, I don't even think I've used the word vegan in any of my books. I am, and I just want people to get it. If they're going to get there, I want them to get there on their own in a way that has a backdrop of self-care, in a way that they realize why they're doing it. I hope they're doing it to make themselves happy. There's plenty of vegans I've met and keep meeting them that are angry and restrictive and militant and just off-putting. I think they're missing the point. They might have come to it to make themselves feel better, but somehow they got lost along the way. So my new book is to sort of remind you, like, why are you doing it? If you're not doing it to make you happy, don't do it, because it's not helping anybody. It's certainly not helping you. And if you're doing it with a backdrop of self-care, an ethic of self-care, it can be an incredible choice. It's made my life so much better, but for some people it doesn't. And I just wanted to have a book that said, look, before you make move 1 into changing the way you eat or how you exercise or whatever, get your ducks in a row, find out why you're doing what you're doing, plan a way to do it that doesn't add a bunch of stress to your life, and then start moving. And then it's in a regulated kind of good way, positive way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think, and you call it a manifesto. Your first book was also, I think, literally subtitled a manifesto. No,
a health manifesto. Yeah, approaching the natural health manifesto. Yeah, and if you notice, well, you will, because you'll get the book, but and I haven't actually seen the book myself, but it's sized exactly like Approaching the Natural Health Manifesto. It's the same
okay,
size.
Good.
Yeah, on purpose. I wanted a little kind of handhold thing, really fun to read, get through, and easy to read for people, and that's the idea.
Yeah, I couldn't visualize because it came through on my PDF. It looks like 8.5 by 11.
Yeah, you can't tell, but yeah, it's a manifesto. It's the same size as Approaching the Natural.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And you talk about getting your ducks in a row, but yet in the introduction, you also warn us about getting our ducks 2 in a row, don't you? You kind of explain that maybe we already know enough to start, that we don't need to do a lot of researching and a lot of new information gathering before we can start reaching out in some of these areas.
Yeah, and that's a good question. By ducks in a row, I mean, know why you're getting into it. That's what I mean. I always say mind first, body second. Now in the book, when I talk about the knowledge thing, what I mean by that is once you have the establishment of ethic and a self-care and a kind of like, okay, I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm trying to be a person who's at a healthy weight and be a happy, healthy person that, really understand what your goals are, really understand what you're going for. Then the point of what you just mentioned in the book is you don't then need to put your life on hold for a year and a half and start reading 15,000 books and going to 15,000 lectures. You probably already have a decent idea about how to eat healthier. You'd be surprised how many people walk in my door at the resort for a nutrition class and have pretty darn good knowledge about how to eat healthy. Maybe not, perfectly, but like they have a good idea of what healthiest food, what's healthy food versus not healthy. That's not what's stopping them. What's stopping them is how to implement that knowledge. So the point of the book is like, knowledge is amazing. It's great. I read things all the time. That's what informs me, but it's never a substitute for action. And so you probably know enough to start. And that's the important thing. Then as you're rolling, you can learn more and become more informed and along the way, but it's the action that will deliver you the happiness. And so you don't get stuck in the weeds on, the 10th lecture on protein. Get moving in whatever way, hence my small steps approach, but get moving and then learn along the way and grow along the way, learn along the way, act along the way. And you're just kind of on the way there.
Yeah. You mentioned the small steps, and I was in an iteration of your small stepping program when it was online, all yes.
all online content.
Which it is.
Is it still?
Well, the online aside from the live Q&As that I do, but yeah,
Okay.
so I've got two things. I've got the smallsteppers.com. That's the online program, 12 weeks. I jump in on occasion and do live Q&As as needed. And then I launched recently, actually, smallstepintensive.com, which is a private coaching. And that's the where you can find out about it. But it is a 12-week. I'm literally in touch with my clients every day for 12 weeks.
Wow.
Like every single, it's an intensive, like it's 2 meetings a week, like the whole thing. So yeah, so some people just don't, that's not for them. They want to do the online program. They get a lot from that, but some people want the accountability and that kind of thing. And it's long enough to where they can kind of get past the excitement of it and really get into the being of it, what it's like to actually live and establish healthy habits and things like that.
That's wonderful. I didn't realize you had the intensive going still right now. So is there a cohort every quarter or so? Or?
The intensive isn't it's literally private. So people, if I have space, which right now I don't,
Gotcha.
But I will, but I have 2 clients ending in the next 2 weeks, and then I'll have 2 spaces open. So I keep 3 clients at a time. So if I don't have, in 6 months, if I have 0 clients, I'll have three spaces open. So it's not a start date. It's a particular to you. If I have a space and you sign up on a Tuesday, that's your day 1, and we get rolling. And 12 weeks later we stop, and it's a pretty intense 12 weeks. With that said, intense in my mind, it just means attention intense, but not time intense. Nobody has to put their lives on hold. They're working. Nobody would even know they're in the intensive. They're not doing diets.
It won't show.
Yeah, it's like thinking. I mean, they're making actual changes. I mean, my clients are like living so much better even in 12 weeks in terms of stress management and things, but it's not they're living their lives. They're raising families, going to work and everything, but they're poking holes in little moments and managing their stress in ways that they never thought was possible. It's really cool to watch.
Well, that's wonderful. I hope my listeners will, maybe some of them will investigate that and take the opportunity to learn more about that, because I think that would be very valuable. One of the things I hear from my clients all the time is we talk about breaking things into smaller components, and so many of them go, well, what difference will that make? You don't understand. I need to. So how do you help people when they say, listen, Sid, a small step, that's too small. It's not going to help with my health or my marriage or my fitness.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't define small step as something that is one size in the world. It's a small step in terms of how you perceive it. And so it's, in other words, if it looks like too big of a thing to handle, you won't do it. So for some people, depending on their lives, and this is what the training happens, is that they assess their lives and they go, okay, well, I mean, I've had people who have cancer, their small step in diet is to change their diet overnight because it doesn't stress them out. They're ready to go. They'll make that habit. They're good. But for other people, it's, fresh fruit for breakfast 1 morning a week. It's whatever gets you acting. So almost every client I've ever had comes to me and says, well, I'm an all or nothing person. I'm a perfectionist. I go, well, how's that serving you? Because if you're an all or nothing person, inevitably you're going to end up doing nothing.
Yeah.
Because the all is too big. So while they might argue, well, 5 minutes a day talking to my spouse before we turn on our TV isn't going to do anything, I just completely disagree, because it begins a habit of connection, a habit of conversation. Then once that habit's established, it can be grown and expanded. But it's got to be about the habit. If you do it for a week and don't do it anymore, there's no difference. Of course, it's not going to make a difference. And that's usually what happens is they go all in, they read meditation book in 45 minutes. That's the thing. And so they force themselves into 45-minute meditation for 2 weeks, and then they quit. And so I start people off with maybe 1 deep breath per day, and they go, well, what's that going to do? I go, well, that's going to establish a habit of meditation that can then be grown into what level you want, maybe 45 minutes. But by the time you get to 45 minutes, not that big of a deal. You've managed to kind of subtly move it into your life, making little cracks here, move things around very easily, not stressing anybody out, not putting your family on hold. And then you kind of reach that level, and then you're kind of doing it every day. And all of a sudden you're like, I meditate every day. That's kind of weird. Like I didn't, and it's like I have a writing assignment that my clients do to write the difference between doing versus being. And it's that transition from doing the thing, like eating a healthy diet based on a diet book, to being a healthy eater. It's a very different thing. Being somebody who eats healthy, they don't think about food too much. It's just what they do. And it takes time to get there. You can't jump ahead. You can jump ahead on a diet and look like somebody who's a healthy eater, but to be somebody who's a healthy eater takes time. It takes sticking with it long enough. And sometimes that means doing a little less to keep you going until you can do it for good.
Well, that's reminding me of your, well, first of all, it reminds me that when I was doing your program, taking a deep breath, I made, it was one of my small steps, and I did it when I was in the car at a stop sign. That was like, I would just try to remind to go, or so then when I parked, or so anytime I would still be completely eyes open, but
Yes.
it was just to kind of get me noticing how many times I was just breathing way up at the top, or
Exactly
clenching
right.
shoulders
So
up
good.
like this,
So good.
by your
Yeah,
ear.
you scatter those moments. It's huge. And even if you start with 1 deep breath per day, but like you said, all of a sudden, because breathing is on your radar now, you'll find yourself doing it at random different times, and then it just grows from there. And then you sort of like your rote response to stress is just to quickly come back into your breath. And it's science. This is not woo-woo stuff. Like the breathing program I instruct now, is the research on it is huge, and it's real. I mean, the effect on your vagus nerve, and the effect on your digestion, and the effect of your overall stress, the effect on your inflammation. It's real. It's not the only factor, but it's one, and it's a real factor. So when you build that practice by starting small enough to hang with it long enough to make it a reality in your life in terms of, moving into more functional breathing, sometimes it has absolutely huge effects. It's been an amazing addition to my practice.
And so tell us a little bit about how you became a functional breathing instructor, or is there another term for that?
Yeah, well, this course I took is called Oxygen Advantage, and he has a new book out. Patrick McKeown, it's McKeown, or he's Irish. Anyways, I go, he's Irish. Anyway, but it has like that guy, McKeown or whatever. Anyway, good guy, but really good program. But yeah, it is training people through various exercises to learn how to breathe more functionally, essentially. And what was eye-opening to me is that on average, people breathe too much. They take too many breaths per minute. And what that's doing is I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but it's bringing in a ton of oxygen, which sounds great, but it's kicking out too much CO2. And that's the problem. It's getting rid of too much CO2, because it turns out there's something called the Bohr effect, which if you can raise the level of CO2 in your blood just enough, it will trigger the release of oxygen into the tissues, which is really what we want. We want tissue oxygenation. Well, with overbreathing, all that oxygen goes in, it links, almost 98% is attached to the hemoglobin, and it doesn't release because you've also blown out too much CO2. So this training over time is to desensitize yourself to CO2, to function day to day with a slightly higher amount of CO2 in your bloodstream at all times, which triggers the release of the oxygen into the tissues. But it's harder than you think. It's a series of breath holds on the exhale, and learning how to desensitize yourself over time. So you're not chest breathing, you're breathing into the abdomen. Your chest and shoulders almost don't even move. It's slowing your breath. It's entirely through the nose, in and out, no mouth breathing at all. I've been taping my mouth shut for about 5 months at night, because I was a mouth breather for years. And I tape my mouth shut now. And I've gotten to the point, it didn't start out that way, but I hung with it long enough, wink, wink, for it to become a habit now, where I'm breathing through my nose all night and during all exercise, all running, all in, all out.
Did, in a different iteration of human existence, did we breathe that way more naturally?
Correct. Well, this is why I love it. Like, the nose is the breathing apparatus, and there's so many biological benefits to breathing through the nose. First, it slows it down. Second of all, it humidifies it, the breath coming in. Nitric oxide, which is a dilator, sort of flexible and makes the bronchial tubes, and actually in the cardiovascular system too, but in terms of breathing, it opens the bronchial tubes, keeps them flexible. Also in the sinuses, nitric oxide. It's biologically, we're nasal breathers. When you need a lot of oxygen really quick, you'll transition to the mouth, but it's not really the primary. It's not the ideal optimal. It's necessary. Like, if you got attacked, God forbid, you would breathe through the mouth, you would need that oxygen that fast.
All at once.
But for day-to-day existence, it's all about the nose. In fact, even if you're an athlete, now, if you're an elite athlete, they shoot to train elite athletes to nasal breathe about 50% of the time. But if you're really pushing it on a race day, you probably will transition to mouth. That's just not applicable to most people who are just living lives and maybe exercise. Like, now I go for a run, all nose, in and out. And it's been time, I've been doing this for 5-6 months every single day. And so it takes time to learn it, but it's such a good question, because it's relearning how we're designed to breathe. It's relearning that, just like relearning how to eat more naturally. I look at it like returning to a little bit more of a natural existence.
So it's very in keeping with all the work you've been doing with your clients
Totally
personally, and with your clients at Stanford Inn.
Yeah.
So why did we start mouth breathing so much?
Modern world, because we're stressed. Yeah, because we work, we don't sleep, we caffeinate, we don't eat well, we're running ourselves ragged, we're, stimulating, and we're going to work for 10 hours, and we're commuting in traffic for an hour. All those factors lead us to a slightly, we're not walking around panic, we're not like, but we are slightly over breathing day to day, and we just don't even think about it. We're kind of in a heightened state where then on top of that, the sensitivity to overwhelm in today's world, I've been talking about this a lot lately, is pretty heightened. Like, it doesn't take a lot for us to be overwhelmed. So for us to go like, I'm going to go on a diet and change the way I eat entirely tomorrow, for most people, it's just way too much. It puts you right into overwhelm because your overall stress is too high. So my work is to mind first, body second. Again, train people how to lower their overall stress so that they can make those changes in whatever area. But you got to make it about the stress first. You got to get on top of that first. Then the moves you make can be long lasting. If you don't address the underlying issues of stress and overwhelm in the world, whatever you try, you can try, but 98% of diets fail for a reason. They're just not, you're not ready to take it on long term yet.
So in coaching, we talk about how actions, in the work I do, we don't coach on the action line. We coach on the feeling line, which fuels the action, and the thought that creates that feeling. So that's exactly what you're saying, this idea of mind first,
body second. Yeah. But we want the weight loss because we want to look good and for whatever reason. And so we go right to the diet because, of course, why wouldn't we? If somebody says, well, you want weight loss, 20 pounds in 20 days. Done. And we're like, that's exactly what I want, right? But it's not what they want.
I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But if they think for a second, they go, wait a second, I don't want to just lose the weight. I want to keep it off. Okay, then you would never go into a 20-pound, 20-day. You would actually do the work to make it a reality for you, which is going to be a long-term process. It's going to be stressful, but you can manage that and make it not so stressful. But you have to maybe not take on so much at once to make it to actually be in line with your goals. But they trick you to think that your goals are a scale weight, and that's not your goal. If you think about it for 5 more seconds, you go like, oh wait, it's not just a scale weight. I want to be somebody who's at a healthy weight, and I don't want to be hyper focused on food, and I want to be happy and joyful and do cool stuff, and maybe eat less than healthy food once in a while, not feel bad about it, not beat myself up. Okay, now let's get the real work done. That's real work, just like what you do with clients. It's real work. Diets are easy. You can put everything on hold, follow exactly what I tell you to do, and lose the weight, but you're going to gain it back, and you'll feel like a failure, and you start beating yourself up again. And my best clients are people who are like, I am exhausted by this. I want to never do this again. I'm like, good. Now we can get the real work done, the adult work of making this a reality.
Yeah, well, you're reminding me that this is very much the book, Six Truths, at least the way I've read it. I read it quickly this week,
but
the point. The last chapter is basically about that. It's about, we all need goals, but the goal is not the goal. The goal is kind of who you become, who you are along that air quotes journey. Yes.
You read the chapter.
No, it's not your favorite
word. I hate that word.
I also hate the term vegan journey. I always do.
Oh, yeah. It is. It's like squishy.
But it kind of works. The problem with it is it I don't know. For me, it kind of does express the issue because most of us are on some sort of trajectory that I deal with.
Sure.
You're not. And even if you've been vegan quite a while, there are probably parts of your life that you don't feel are 100% in alignment with that. I don't know if there is a perfect vegan experience possible in
who knows, and in like you were touching upon, it's like I talk about the book, like make your goals somewhat obsolete. Set them, work toward them, but understand this: reaching that goal isn't going to make you happy. It'll give you a boost of excitement and a good accomplishment, and that's great. We all have goals. I set them too, but the happiness comes from the day to day, and that's why that truth called happiness is in the A to Y, not the Z. It's in the A to Y every time. It doesn't mean don't set your goals, set them, but know when you hit it or not, go on the next day. You got to come back to your life, deal with your life, and set a new goal. But it's all about how you're living day to day. That's where happiness lives, is in the day to day, not in the one day that you finish cross the finish line. And that's amazing. And I've had great memories and experiences of finishing a race and going, oh, I cannot believe I did that. It was incredible. It feels so good. But then you got to get moving again.
Yeah.
Right. Because the day to day is like, how engaged are you in your life day to day? That's where the real work is. And goals can play an amazing part in keeping you engaged and stretching your figurative muscles and taking you out of your comfort zone. And that's all great. I mean, I'm a huge fan of all that stuff, but you still got to come back to your life, and it has to be part of the equation.
So I don't want to talk about all 6 truths because I think that's for our readers, our listeners to like unfold for themselves. But is there one truth that you would like to chat with or tell us about in 6 truths? Did one come first or second or last for you?
Well, the first one did come first, and that's that setting the example is almost the whole shebang. And part of this is me being just, I've been in this world for a while now. I've been doing this for a long time. And I am, for whatever reason, I'm hypersensitive and not hypersensitive. I'm hyper focused on how somebody is living themselves way more than what they say, way more. The example that they said. I want to listen to what somebody has to say, but I won't if I don't perceive. If I don't perceive, and I could be wrong about it, but if I don't perceive somebody is living better than I'm living in whatever way, like if I'm going to get running coaching, like I did when I ran my first ultra, I hired a coach. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, please help me, right? I'm not going to go to somebody who's in worse shape than I am, who's never run an ultra marathon. I'm going to go to somebody who I perceive is kicking butt as an ultra runner and potentially as a coach, and then say, okay, that's the guy. And that's who I found. And it turned out to be great. At the time, if I had worked with him and realized he's not that, I would fire him and talk to somebody else. And I've told my clients straight up, I'm like, if I don't embody to you somebody who's living better than you are in these areas, healthy weight and energy and vibrancy and things like that, don't work with me, because I'm not going to have an effect on you, because you're going to, in the back of your mind somewhere, you're going to go, you can't even do it. And if you can't do it, how the heck am I supposed to do it? Right. So people have asked me, well, how did you become a health coach? How should I become a health coach? I go, do it first. Figure out, because there's struggles associated with it. There's hard work. There's failures. There's difficulties. There's roadblocks. Get it done. And then you've had the experience of getting that done yourself. And that's going to be so much more powerful than anything you tell your client. If you have been through it, then you can empathize with them. You know where the struggles are. Yeah. I mean, I just had a client who's, battling with food, like serious. And we're working on that. And under my small steps approach, I'm trying to, I make it really not about food, because again, it's the underlying stress, right? So she was battling something. And I said, listen, personal story, Tuesday night, this is a true story, 2 nights ago, we're eating dinner, and then we had some Easter jelly beans, vegan, who cares, right? Total junk food, 100% junk food. And we got outside, I'm snacking on them. And all of a sudden, like, I was in a deep dive, like I was eating jelly beans. It was not a pretty sight. And I had to ask my wife, please, and my daughter who was sitting next to me, she's 17, go, please move these away from me. Like, please take them away from me. That, I've been doing this longer than anybody, small stepping, because I developed the approach. I battle. I need help. This is highly addictive. It's hard to get this done. I was in a place where I was like, I kept going back for handfuls. It was like, I was in this weird state. I was like, please move these from me. I had to ask for help on that. That's because I know that about myself. I know that there is no perfection to be had. I know that it's ongoing struggle, and I'm glad about that. I'm glad that I earned my win. My win that was that I asked for help and said, can you move this away from me? And they did, and I was done. And thank goodness, because if they hadn't, it would have been, I'd probably still be eating them. And so having that experience, I believe I'm living a good example of health, not because I'm perfect, not because I don't have struggles, but precisely because I have those things, and I'm learning how to do my best in spite of those things, right? It's like I always tell people when I wrote my Raising Healthy Parents book, I want my kids to know when I'm afraid. I want them to know when I'm nervous about doing whatever, getting on stage and all. I want them to know. I don't want them to think my dad was just was so easy for him. It's not. I want them to see that there's struggle. I want to see the truth of that, so that they see how somebody might work through that stuff. And that's what I bring to the coaching table as well.
I think that is absolutely so crucial. So many people tell me that, well, I guess it's not easy for me. I guess that's not for me. This idea of things being easy, or it should be flow, or it should feel natural, or it should feel simpler, or my relationships should feel more easy than it does, is not necessarily a problem, right? The idea that things aren't easy it's not necessarily a red flag.
Yeah. I mean, one of the truths in the book is there's no substitute for hard work, and there never will be. To live a good life, you have to be engaged. You have to pay attention. There's never a point where you go, okay, I got this. I'm done. Now I can just phone it in and turn off my brain. You have to stay engaged. It takes time. I've used the analogy of a yoga instructor. I know lots of yoga instructors because of the resort. They take classes. They're not done. They didn't go, I am now a yoga instructor. I never have to learn anything else about yoga. It's a practice. It's ongoing. So is living a happy life. You have to be engaged to do it. If you don't want to be engaged, fine. But look at what is allowing us to not be engaged in our life. It's never easier. It's never been this easy to be not engaged via junk food, drugs, alcohol, social media, news, that we can turn off our brains most of our days now. And that's a dangerous slope that we're going down. And so what I am advocating for is bringing in moments, not telling somebody to not go on social media, but how do you regulate it? How do you manage it? How do you poke holes in it so you take time to take that deep breath at the stop sign? That's where the power comes, and that allows you to stay a player in your life instead of just waking up 3 years later and going, what happened to me? I was going to write a book and I never did. And this kind of stuff.
Now, was there a time in your life where you felt like you were disengaged, where you woke up 3 years later and you hadn't accomplished what you had wanted to do?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Periods of time. Yeah. I mean, look, I was a full-time musician. Music was my absolute passion in Los Angeles. I made my living acting, but I was a musician through and through, played and gigged and toured and put records out. Then I moved up here to where I live now, Mendocino Coast. And I was definitely burnt on music by the time I got up here. I had put so much of my time into it. And so I knew I was going to take a break, but I literally didn't pick up my guitar for 5 years. It was like in my case for like 5 years. It was like so much my identity. And then I just woke up and I was like, what is happening here? And then I used my own small steps approach and took it out of the case and put it on a stand and just kind of touched it once a week, just kind of put my hands on it just to kind of bring it back in. I didn't go to this, I got to start playing 3 hours a day like I used to. I was like, right. And so, yeah, you can wake up, we have big plans. I'm going to write a book. And so we go all in for whatever time. And then we all of a sudden, 6 months later, I've had clients like this, they ideally they're a novelist. I go, when's the last time you worked on your novel? 6 months. Okay, well, let's start with 5 minutes a day to get that back on your radar. Well, that's not going to do anything. I go, yes, it is, because 5 minutes a day is going to turn into 10 minutes a day, is going to turn into 30 minutes a day. And over the next 6 months, even if you just did 5 minutes a day, 6 months, 5 minutes a day is a lot more than you have done in the last 6 months. Right. So I have, and still do, all of a sudden I'm like, I want to get back into this thing, and it just ebbs and flows. That's it. Yeah. But it never stops.
So you are modeling the transformations you've had in your life and the struggles you've had in your life. And one of the things we talk about on my podcast is Stoicism. I am a geek about philosophy. You are a philosophy major at UCLA. And I'm curious, what philosophies what philosophies appealed to you back then when you were a young man, and which kind of have stayed with you that are relevant now for you?
I think you mean younger man, because I'm still very young, Michelle, as you can tell. I was just talking about my philosophy because I was thinking about it. It has really, unbelievably to me, been such a huge part of my life in terms of what I do now. I mean, all my books I consider philosophy books first and foremost. My approach is very philosophical. It was not my intention to be a philosophy major. I fell into a class to satisfy a general ed thing and just absolutely fell in love with it. It was Descartes. I remember I sat in this philosophy class, this huge auditorium, and I was like, this is my first introduction ever. I had never, not one iota. I think that should be taught in high schools. I think that would be amazing, but it wasn't in mine, and I don't think it is in most. But I was an economics major, and then a political science, and then I was English, and I just stumbled into this philosophy class and absolutely loved it. But ethics is the thing that I loved the most. Ethics was the thing that I loved the most. I loved every class I took on ethics. And that has definitely informed my work now. I see self-care as an ethic. I see it as a right and wrong in terms of treating ourselves well. I see even, people always go like, well, I'm vegan for the health, but I'm vegan for the ethics. I'm going, no, and I've talked about this on stage 1,000 times. It's all under the umbrella of ethic, or at least I think it's best served when it is. When you say treating myself well, treating myself compassionately, learning how to be compassionate to yourself even on a health level, it bleeds into every part of your life. But I also see treating the earth well as an environmental thing. It's not a separate thing from self-care. We're part of the earth. We want to treat it well. We want to treat ourselves well. I think, in fact, learning how to treat yourself well is a very, very good place to start, to then come out into the world and translate that compassion into all other areas, how you treat your family and friends. When you are, again, stress managed and learning how to take care of yourself, that's only going to be a good thing for everybody in your life. How you treat people is going to be based on how you treat yourself. That's what I believe through and through. Could be wrong, but that's what I believe.
I'm wondering how you advise. Very often I find my clients do have tremendous empathy and ethical concerns about others and not so much about themselves.
Yeah.
Really,
I know.
Really do not. They're more concerned about the workers in slaughterhouses even than themselves. They're more concerned about the people who are handling the meats and packaging them but for themselves, they have a hard time putting themselves as in the important category, I need to be kind to this human being who's sitting here category. How do you help them see that?
Well, because I mean, my second book's called Raising Healthy Parents, which is literally about putting the brain on you as a parent. Like that, you can't be the parent you want to be if you're stressed and exhausted and unhealthy and feeling stressed and unhappy all the time. It is not only crucial to look how many parents I've worked with who go, I can't, they're like putting themselves on the back burner in theory for the good of the kids. And yet I need them to understand that when they take care of themselves, it's better for the child. They are, first of all, lower stress so they can implement whatever parenting style they have. Number one. Number two, they're setting the example of health and happiness for their child, which I think is a more powerful message than even what they say. So it's two things, but it's not just okay to take care of yourself. It's actually crucial. I mean, on every level, whatever you want to get done in your world, if you want to be an activist against the animal industry, you are best served when you're taking care of yourself. I'm sorry, but we'll argue that till the cows come home, no pun intended. I want people to learn how to take care of themselves because they can do whatever they want to do better when they are more powerful and strong in their minds and bodies. And I just make that argument every day. And that's the mind first, body second. And frankly, like if you're not grounded and you're not in a place of relative calm and, again, stress management, if you're involved in I'll talk about this because it's particular to your podcast, but if you're talking about the animal industry and slaughterhouses, watch how fast that takes you down.
Yeah.
Watch how fast that destroys you. I've been at Vedge Fest, I was in Florida a few years ago doing a talk, and I was just going to the bathroom and I walked by a table where they had a big monitor showing a video of some slaughterhouse thing. And I never watched that stuff. I'm already plant-based 18 years. I don't want any part of that industry. But I walked by and just looked over and see this 3-second scene that literally ruined my day. I mean, I couldn't stop talking. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I still think about it just now when I told you that story, I had the exact image in my brain. It takes attention and effort to maintain a level of grounding and strength to not let that stuff make you an angry, unhappy person, because that's not going to help anything. You've got to be that. If you want to make change in the world, you've got to figure out a way to make yourself happy and healthy first. I just believe that.
Yeah, I believe that too. I sometimes can't argue it as forcefully and as well as you just did, because I when people are feeling extremely outraged and coming from a real like a single moral issue about it is, I mean, I defer to that. I couldn't possibly argue against their moral outrage. On the other hand, when I find they make themselves ineffective in helping the rest of us do better, learn better, teach better, spend our money better. There's so much control we do have that when we're hijacked, I think, this way, we don't use all we have.
Yeah, and we don't influence enough people. I mean, really, it's like one person is great and they have a passion about this thing, but in theory, they know that they can't do it all themselves. They need to change a horrible industry like what you were talking about. It means lots of people being affected. It means their friends and family seeing that living this way is a better way to live. If you can't make that sell, if you're walking around angry, I have met vegan. I'll make a joke here, but it's kind of true. I have met vegans where I'm like, man, you're making me not want to be vegan, because it's like, you're angry and resentful and on just ready to attack every 5 seconds. That's not, you lost your way. In theory, you went into this to eat this way because you thought it was a better way to do things, a better way to live, a better way to be a human being. And I agree with you. But if you don't remind yourself of that when you get up every morning, you lose, because you're not even getting done what you want to get done. And that's the struggle. That when we talk about struggle, that's a struggle. How I asked Gene, Gene Bauer is?
Yes.
Farm Second. Yeah. We become friends over the years, and I had him on my old show, the Approaching the Natural show. But I asked him, I said, that guy's been front lines. You want to talk about somebody he's been in the slaughterhouses with secret cameras, like in the 70s, like doing the bit. Nobody's done it like Gene. I said, how do you get up in the morning? Like knowing that pain that you've seen, knowing the stuff you've actually seen. He goes, I have to always remind myself of the positive work we are doing. He has to keep his brain into the work that they are doing and the accomplishments that they have made. If he changes his mindset to think about all the work they haven't gotten done yet and all the pain that still exists, he can't do his job. And we need Gene to be able to do his job. I need Gene to do what he does, which is, have you ever met him?
No.
He's like kind and funny and mellow, and he looks, healthy and vibrant, and he interviews well. I need Gene there. That's exactly where I need Gene. I need Gene in exactly that place because he translates change better. He was on Tucker Carlson and had a great interview. And even Tucker was like, why don't you? Because he's like, cool, right? Yeah. And that takes energy. That takes focus. Yes. Right. And that's where I need guys like that. I need men and women in that place so that they can make effective change that they want to make. But I think that I agree with them ethically, and I want that change to make too. And I got to work on myself in that regard as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're also protecting yourself from social media because there's a lot of this sort of, you're very outspoken as being cut the cord on
I
social
quit it.
Media, right?
I deleted it. Yeah.
I still, I talked to Howard Jacobson about it a little bit the other day, and he was like, how do you protect? I go, well, I just block them. They don't seem to bother me as much. I think we all have, maybe over time it'll be, so even in the plant-based and in the vegan communities, vegetarian communities, there are some, very angry, very, I guess I would just say negative, some very negative people.
Oh, crazy amount.
And looking to find out what you're doing wrong all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had one of the funny stories I ever about this, not funny, but funny. I was speaking in North Carolina, and the event put me up with one of the, event people. I was staying at her house, and the night before I arrived, she had gotten into this like massive argument on Facebook, this vitriol, this group versus this, all vegan, by the way. This group for this group, and now they're not talking, and she was afraid to go to the event the next day because there was so much vitriol, so much anger, and they were like boycotting her, and they were calling her out, and she was super stressed about it. And I remember showing up at the event the next day with her. She drove me to the event, and she goes, there's some people from the group that was like, that are calling me out. At the name of that group, Vegans for Peace. I am not joking. Vegans for Peace. And I was like, there's something very fundamentally wrong with what is happening right now.
It's a good reminder for all of us that our level of outrage we need to check ourselves for it all the time. It's very easy to see in someone else, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We're expecting perfection, and we expect never to make mistakes, but we're not robots. And if we identify an ethic and identify an effort, then we need to really appreciate that and go, they're on their track. I'm on my track. I may be doing it better than they are. They may be doing it better than I am in some other ways, but we're all kind of moving the train in the same direction. Let's all get this done. But man, oh man, I mean, the amount of vitriol, and that's why I quit social media. And I quit it because frankly, I could have regulated it and said, okay, well, I'm going to do a little bit. But as a practitioner, I was like, what happens if I just quit everything? What's that going to be? Just as an experiment.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and did that. And then on YouTube, the one holdout, because people go, that's social media. It never was for me. But on YouTube, I for the last over a year now, when I launch a video, I disable comments. If you notice my videos, there's no comments, just no comments. Like like it, or I don't mean push the like button, but enjoy the video or don't enjoy the video, watch it and maybe learn something from it. That'd be great. And then go on and live your life. I don't need to hear your comments. Not that I'm against them, but I don't want you to, it's great. Just do your thing. And it's been a very interesting, liberating talk about music. Like I quit social media, and within a month started writing songs again. I have a whole nother album's worth of material. I haven't written an album's worth of material in 15 years, but I give up that. And it wasn't the time that I was on it. It was a decent amount of time, but not that much. It was the mental real estate taken up by it. Reading comments, knowing about comments, looking at stuff like that takes up time in your brain, not physical time in the world, but mental real estate. And people, I think, aren't fully aware that that's happening. They go, I'm only on for a half hour. Yes, but what other parts of your life are affected by that and infected by that? And when that went away, it was like, I have physical free time, but also mental openness. Like, what do I want to do now? It was like this great feeling, So I stuck with it.
I think it's also the interruption time of it that
Yes.
is it takes up. It's not even just a minute interruption here, or even just thinking, oh, I wonder if anybody responded, or
Yes.
just
That's
that
what I mean.
is a lot.
That's what I mean. Yeah, there's a great book by Cal Newport. If I ever meet him, I'm going to hug him because I'll ask permission first. But he, because he saved my second book, but he wrote a book called Deep Work.
Yes.
And and basically he argued that it is a dying talent to be able to stick with something long enough. We are fragmented in our thinking now. We are blip, 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 but it's not a natural thing. It's changing our chemistry, changing our neurology in our brains. It's changing the way that we operate. And it's not a healthy thing. Again, not a natural thing. So to be able to set constraints in this way of shutting out social media was a way to liberate me. Again, talk about mindset. It wasn't a restrictive, like I'm going to restrict. It was like, how can I free myself to do other things? And I was able to finish. I swear, I don't know if I would have been able to finish I was so fragmented when I sat down to read Raising a Healthy Parent, to write Raising Healthy Parents. I'd write for about 5-7 minutes. And then I'd be on YouTube. Magically, or I'd be on a Facebook. I wouldn't even be conscious turning it on. It was like I'd be writing, I'm in a really good place. And then I'd be at Facebook just like that. And I was like, what is happening? And then I saw his TED Talk on YouTube one time when I was distracting myself, and I went, whoa. And I bought his book and read it while I was supposed to be writing my book, read it. And I got back into my book, shut things off, closed things off, set parameters. And then I was able to get back into the work. But I remember telling my wife at the time, I was like, my brain is not functioning well. I can't focus. Something is not right here. And I was very conscious of that happening. And I think I saved it a little bit, because I got on top of it, but it's happening for a lot of people.
Well, especially you are younger than I am, but there was a time before all these interruptions, before the handheld phone that had everything in it. And there was a time when I was a young woman or in university where when you sat down to do your work, there were interruptions, but they were people interruptions, somebody banging on your door or something. But you could sit and I would see my work. I would start out writing or doing something or processing something, and I didn't know what I was doing, but just by being there, stuff emerges.
That's right.
And if you are constantly being interrupted, I think nothing can emerge from your brain or from your writing or from your processing. So I think that interruption is just super, super toxic for our upper level, our frontal cortex.
That's right. Yeah, it's like the it's interruptions are going to happen, like you said. But it's the level, and it's the level of distraction available to us. And I think that it is taking us down. It's not making us productive. It's not making us happier, for sure, to have that level of interruption. I just did a recent video YouTube channel called My Take on Intermittent Fasting, because that's all the rage, but it's all food related, which makes sense. That's what intermittent fasting is. I make the argument in the video that we should apply that same kind of intermittent fasting to what we feed our minds. I call it in my first book, Approaching the Natural, I call it mental nutrition. What we feed our minds, social media, news, books, movies. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm saying that's the stuff we consciously put in our minds, like we consciously put food in our bodies, to take a break from that, to not consciously put something in your mind for periods of time, because that's when the stuff happens. Like you said, like when you can process that information, when you can just sit, and you don't have to be writing, but just hanging out. So we don't value doing nothing anymore. We don't value sitting. If I have an employee, which I don't, but if I did, I'd be like, sit still for 15 minutes and think. That's when the ideas happen. Right? You don't have to be active all the time. I mean, look at how active we are all the time when we're not getting anything done. Thinking. That's why in my car down to the resort for the last year, most times I drive to and from, it's only 15 minutes. I have nothing. First it was like news, and then that was stressing me out. So then it was music, and that's fun. Then it was podcast. Now I go, what happens if I just do nothing? And I have a little digital recorder, because guess what? Ideas come. And I can't write them down. It's not safe. And so I turn on my recorder and go, podcast idea, boom, video idea. That's when it happens. It's all there just because of quiet. It's such a cool thing. And I would advocate people try it for a minute, 1 minute, just 1 minute, nothing. Don't put anything in your head for 1 minute, a conscious 1 minute, and see what happens. It's kind of cool. And it becomes very, very peaceful.
Totally agree. I think that's why people say they have great ideas in the shower, because
exactly
most of us we're not being bombarded while we're in the shower.
That's right. That's right. Middle of the night, 3 a.m. I wake up and I'm like,
genius.
Yeah. That's that's a good idea. And then I forget it 9 times out of 10. So I have like my phone next to my bed, and I quickly jot down the thing, or I have a piece of paper and I can write it down or whatever, just so I can not forget it by the time I wake up 4 hours later, whatever. And so that solitude, those moments that I talk about in the book, that those moments of it doesn't have to be quiet, like sitting on a mountaintop quiet. It has to be intentional. I nicked it from a good book called Lead Yourself First, where he defines solitude as freedom from input from other minds, free of input from other minds. So you can be on a subway with noise around you, but are you free of conscious input from other minds? Are you deciding I'm not putting something into my head on purpose? And then that's the places that you kind of live in now and then momentarily. And those are the places that make us grounded and help us recover, rest and stress.
Yeah, really. I think that's so beautiful. And it's so important. I mean, when in coaching, we talk about noticing that the thoughts in our head are not necessarily true, that we have a lot of thoughts. Oh, yeah. Some of them we might decide are true, but most of them are just thoughts we've been cycling through, and who knows where they came from. And until you take some time to notice that, put them out on paper or speak them in front of somebody who's going to challenge you a little bit, you sometimes will just keep cycling that through.
Yeah, you'll accept them as truth. Yeah,
exactly. And we have a lot of people who we are the product that they are trying to organize. There are people who are trying to get us to think certain things from a certain way because it's good for their business, or it's good for or even coming from a good point of view, even just thinking this makes a good citizen or a good community member, a good family member. We repeat things. So unless we have that time to notice these thoughts, we don't get a chance to decide whether we want to keep them.
Yeah. What are the ones you want to keep? What are the ones you don't? I had a client years ago whose dad called her fat and ugly when she was a kid. And over time, when you hear that enough, whether it's from a parent or from a teacher or from a friend or a so-called friend or whatever, all of a sudden that kind of starts to seep in, and the voice in your head sounds like you saying it. It's your voice saying it, right? And all of a sudden, unquestioned, that can become a thing that is your reality. You would define yourself that way. If somebody asked you, who are you? I'm fat and ugly. And you're not. And you're not. On another level, you're not. But if you don't take the time to ask that question, to define who you are, in spite of how that voice might be saying it in your head, but who are you? And 9 times out of 10, when I work with people, I ask that question before we get anything done, is to define your ideal. You did that when you did the online program. The first task is to define your ideal life. That's because we need to define that in spite of the messaging we might be hearing in our lives. We need in our heads, in our voice, it sounds like, but it's not us. And until we ask that question, I don't want anybody to move, because you got to know who you are before you make a move toward that person, right? And if you believe you're fat and ugly, the moves you make are going to be very hard to undo that, unless you start defining, no, I'm actually not. I'm actually this person. And this is the person that's going to start emerging into the world more and more every day.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's also a trick question. It's kind of a hard question for some of us, especially me, the kind of person
hard.
There's got to be a right answer, right? Yeah, and there's definitely a wrong answer.
No, it's super hard. People have stewed. They think it sounds like an easy exercise. I call it the ideal idea. It's a very hard thing to do. If you're obese and your whole life has been, I'm a binger, I have no control, I'm an all in, I think all these messages, all these ways we define ourselves, and you write down your ideal idea. Most people that I've worked with that are, let's say highly overweight, they don't write down I'm overweight. They write down I'm at a healthy weight. That means that's, to me, that's who they are. I always say I don't help people become different people. I help them become themselves, not my judgment. I don't tell you who you are. I want you to get to a place where you can use my approach or another approach, whatever works for you, to answer those questions about really who are you. Then all of a sudden the I'm fat and ugly you recognize that as not you now. You're like, oh, there that is again. That was, and if they really want to go back and find out the origins of that, that's when I say, go see a psychologist, because I'm not one. But I want you to know who you are ideally, and then be able to move via small steps to get closer to that person day to day. And don't expect perfection, because I wouldn't have overeaten those jelly beans. The ideal me, I lost that battle. But on the balance, I win more than I lose. And that's the way I want to keep it. And I never stop trying.
And who brought those jelly beans into the house?
My wife, her fault. It was for Easter. Yeah. Right. And so it was like, we had Easter candy, and I just 2 days ago, I was like, I don't want to eat dessert. I always ask for help. She asked me for help. She was like, I don't either. And we help each other. Like, remember? And they just came out and we were snacking on it, and then it went out of hand. So anyways, but again, I sweat it. because it's a one most of the time. Remember, Mott?
Exactly.
I really don't care. I asked for help. I got it done. I fixed it. No harm done. And I moved on. I'm not stewing about it. If I did that every night, then it becomes a thing, right?
And you ask for help because you value yourself and you love yourself and you want yourself to be well and you love the people around you and you trust them to love you. So it's a nice thing. Some of my clients will also say, I should be able to sit in front of those jelly beans.
Yeah. And I go, why? Why should you? They're designed to be addictive. And if you think that's weak, you got another thing coming. That's to me the strong. That's why I argue that in the book, because strength, I really define strength. Let's talk about what strength is. Asking for help in a world that is crazy and nutty and also awesome in many ways too. But asking for help is a position of strength. I'm sorry, but it is. Sometimes we need help. We all need help. And to somehow perceive that as a weakness is, I think, very disappointing. It's very, antithetical to living a good life. Like self-care is self-care. And that's going to mean taking care of yourself means asking for help sometimes. Right.
Yeah. And you're denying other people in your community and people in your family and your people that you work with the opportunity to know you better and to
That's right.
show you that kind of respect and love.
Yes.
And so it's actually disconnecting, I find, when you think that you have to be the Lone Ranger that's got it all handled at all times.
Totally. And I have kids, as a parent, like with the Raising Healthy Parents book, like I love asking my kids for help and they love helping me.
Yes.
I'll be like, guys, don't let me eat any more of those jelly beans. Because again, I want them to see like it can get done, but not without work.
Yeah.
It can get done, but not without work. Because I don't want them to have an expectation. Oh, my father never struggled with food, so therefore I shouldn't have to struggle with it. It's like, oh my God, I did a horrible job parenting if they grew up thinking that there's no battles around food when you have stuff that is literally designed to be addictive. And I want them to know the struggles are there and that they can get on top of them and how to do it. Right.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think my kids are all grown up. I now have a new grandson who's turning one shortly, and his mother and my son-in-law received a copy of your book a little while ago.
Cool.
Raising
healthy parents.
Healthy parents. I'm thinking happy. No, they're not going to be happy, but they'll be healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot, but it is about taking care of you first. It is.
Yes. Yeah. And we do, again, it seems like, well, as a parent, you can't do that. You have to, like you and people said to me, well, why are you writing a parenting book? It gives you credit about it. I said, that's not a parenting book. I'm not telling people how to parent their kids. I'm not telling them how to talk to their kids. I'm telling them that however they want to parent, I think every parent has an idea of how they want to be as a parent. I do believe that. But if you're super stressed, you can't pull that off. So the book is like, here's some tools and things to think about to get your ducks in a row so that then you can parent however you want to parent. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. I'm just going to tell you that if you take care of yourself, you'll do it better. That's all.
So I hope my listeners are taking notes, and the notes will be in the show notes. There'll be links to it. But Raising Healthy Parents, I totally recommend, is a wonderful book. And now 6 Truths. Who do you think should read 6 Truths, Sid? The new book.
Everybody between 27 and no, I'm just kidding. Anybody. It's written to be accessible and fun. It's written to be, I thought, well, if I'm going to write a self-help book, which essentially it kind of is, I didn't want it to be, and I'm not knocking any other books. I really am not, because it's time and place. I've read when I need to books that are super dry, but I'm like, this is an amazing book because it's, but for some people who are busy and they are, maybe going from yo-yo diet to yo-yo diet or some quick fix plan, looking for something that they're not getting. This is the book. It's live by these truths and be happy, don't, and you won't. That's the subtitle. And it's how to negotiate a crazy world with a little bit of a sense of humor, with a little bit of an understanding of what it is to be strong, what it is that your actual goals are, to be happy, to do the work, to see what you really care about, that gets you maybe less involved in stupid things like office politics that stress you out. Then at the end of the day, you go like, I don't even care about that. Why am I getting, to give you tools to do things that are outside of work necessary, maybe in small step ways that are making you feel good, creative things, pursuits that give you inspiration and passion and going toward there. So it's the book for people who are looking for a good life and maybe overwhelmed by the prospect. And this book is to show that it's doable.
Yeah, I think it works for so many people on so many levels. There's so much you can get out of it. And I could imagine people very easily taking one of the truths per week or one truth per month, maybe reading it all, but then choosing one to privilege for the month or for the week to kind of really stay front of mind with it, because I think whether the issues that come up in your life are food, or whether they're relationships or career, I think that it's applicable to so many things that people are trying to do but might find themselves a little bit stuck.
Yeah.
So 6 truths. Cool. It somehow sounds like it does it resemble the title of anything from philosophy? I'm just wondering if it had some kind of secondary resonance for you.
It doesn't. It was, I've got to be honest, the first title was 4 truths. Oh. And then as I was looking at it, I was like, oh wait, no, I want to do this one. Oh no, wait, I want to do this one. And then I was like, oh, so then I was like, no, it's 6 truths. And then of course I Googled it to see if anybody else had titled it. And there's like one other book that's like 6 truths of motherhood. So I was like, okay, I think I'm okay. Like there's not that many, but yeah, no, it was random. It wasn't based on anything. It was just 6 truths that it was 6 main topics I wanted to cover, and I did.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm really excited that you were able to come on and chat about your book. I wanted to ask one more thing about coffee. Where are you on your coffee journey these days, Sid? What are you roasting? What are you drinking? What are you?
Yeah, I bought an AeroPress years ago because I was speaking a lot and traveling around, and hotel coffee is the bane of my existence. So I thought I'd get an AeroPress. Now I use it every day. I get up every morning, make my wife a cup and make myself a cup. And, so that's what I'm making. I'm for your listeners, I've been roasting my own beans for 20 years. So it changes because I've been working with the same company. I'm not connected to them financially, but they're called The Coffee Project. I just love them. There's like this indie company out of Glendale, California. And I just email them and I go, hey, what's good? Like, whatever. I check on their site and I buy 10 pounds of green beans that show up and I roast. And it's the easiest darn thing in the world. And I absolutely love it. So right now I'm doing Costa Rican. And I'm roasting on the dark side, not super dark, but not medium for sure. So it's on the darker side, and it's like paradise. I'm such a coffee spoiled brat about it. Like I don't want to waste a cup of coffee unless it's really good. And so that's what I'm doing.
So which truth is that under? The idea of treating yourself very, very well in your certain
I think it would be the truth one, living the example of drinking really good coffee.
I love it. I love it. Sid, thank you so much for being
oh my God,
interviewee.
I'm excited. That sounds so good. I'm so happy. You're so sweet. And you have been such a huge support over the years.
Love your work.
And you're awesome. And it's just been so good to trade emails with you over the years. And when you launched a show, I was like super cool. And then to have me on is even better. So thank you so much for everything.
I'm a big fan. And so now I'm glad that my listeners know about you, if they didn't, because I've mentioned you before. So at least 4 more people know about you.
Good. Okay, great.
Thank you, Sid. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.
So listeners, what did you think? For some of you, it might have been your first introduction to Sid Garza Hillman. Sid is really a wealth of information. He's been doing this a long time. He has worked with such a variety of people. And what did you think about his knowledge about how we should be breathing? Functional breathing is something I only learned about because I listened to Sid's podcast. I hope you enjoyed him. I hope you are interested in learning more about his books, especially this new one, 6 Truths. I have a couple of copies that I am allowed to give away. So if you're interested in getting a free copy of Sid's new book, 6 Truths, review and make a little note in the review. You'd like to be entered into the raffle to win 6 Truths. Put it in there. I want to win 6 Truths. And give us a 5-star rating, and we will give away a couple copies. If you are not in North America, I will offer you either the audio version or a ebook version, Kindle or whatever ebook version you want of 6 Truths. And we are so excited to have finally done an interview. My editor, Charlie Weinshank, is going to be busy trying to make me sound less confused and stuttery. But I'm really excited that we were able to get this out to you, the Vedge Your Best listeners, today. Thank you so much, and hopefully there'll be some more interesting interviews in the weeks ahead. Stay tuned. Vedge Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Vedge Your Best team if you would hit subscribe leave us a 5-star review or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.